high performance design and sustainability aren't mutually exclusive. And in fact, Lake Plato has a sort of saying that design and sustainability are two sides of the same coin.
Right.
And I've sort of riffed it off of that. And I like to say that the coin is the technology, the coin itself, right?
Okay, yeah, we all want more sustainable buildings and but how do we get there, right? And so I'm not getting sort of resources tossed at me of saying, here's how we can do it better, right? And I think thinking about sort of the industry and how it's incentivizing or not incentivizing the furthering of sustainable design.
I mean, we have the opportunity to like right the ship, but if we don't focus on this in a real way, it's going to be bad.
What does this look like in your career or in recent projects or a project that kind of a lot of this has come together with?
I brought a nice little prop here today that is this circular construction and circular economy book by Felix Heisel. He runs the circular construction lab at Cornell, and it's got all kinds of really great things in there. And that's what Lake Flato even did when we remodeled our office that just finished a year ago in San Antonio. We actually had this attached one-story garage, and we deconstructed the roof of it and used the wood. It's called downcycling because we're reusing the wood for more aesthetics. But in our phone rooms, we have these wood tabletops that are made from that wood, and they have all these cool little nooks and crannies. And like when I'm in meetings, I'll sit there and rub my fingers on them and just kind of imagine the history.
Think of the history.
Yeah, it's just kind of
What have these
revealing.
holes seen in their lives?
Exactly. Yeah. So how about you? Do you have some favorite project?
One of our favorites it's called on our website, the Black Forest House. We were thinking about how we could sequester carbon in different ways and insulate in different ways. Getting a lot of cross ventilation into the form, solar on the roof, geothermal on the ground. But it was a sort of project where we said, hey, this is what we believe in, this is what we could do, and getting that out there. So
Super cool. Obviously, we've talked a lot about architecture and sustainability. I think it's fun sometimes to find out what people do themselves in terms of sustainability, like personally. And so at my house that I moved into 4 years ago in Texas, I've done quite a bit of work. I actually installed a 26-year HVAC system. I had them install a zoning board. So where there was one thermostat for the entire house, there's actually 4 thermostats and then mechanized dampers in the ductwork that open and close. So during the day, for example, I work from home. I can have my office actually a comfortable temperature, but the rest of the house can get hot and a little bit humid. Yeah, so how about you?
for my wife and I, both being architects, we both gravitated towards that dense kind of urban living. And so even when we moved to Wichita, Kansas, we lived in the sort of old town, the small area. We didn't have a car for 5 years. And then moving here, we moved downtown into a small apartment and had our first child, and he was sleeping in a coat closet, just trying to keep our footprint down. Mm-hmm. And then even now we're in a bungalow, and it's 800 square feet for a family of 4. We're really passionate about keeping our footprint small, and we still, as a family of 4, have 1 car, fighting that desire to just scale up for a scale up purpose and, mm-hmm. and rethinking how we're designing the house. I think me as a small firm, I have to choose what I'm focusing on. The thing I get most passionate about is the sort of passive design of a building and mm-hmm. the orientation that I can control maybe the easiest, and then trying to slowly nudge clients to have better mechanical systems and mm-hmm. things like that. You're in an interesting position where you're part of these high level conversations with the AIA or with Autodesk or something like that, mm-hmm. right? That's sort of the 2% of architects, right? There's a lot of us down here that are just trying to feed ourselves the next day, right? And trying to get projects and trying to do these things.
That's why we need better tools to just streamline it, right? So it just doesn't have to be this big extra lift. And it's interesting you talk about some of the challenges of, as a small firm, being able to do a certain task like an LCA, tracking embodied carbon. And that is a true, accurate problem. And I don't think it's unique to the size of the firm, actually. I think there's big firms that
Right.
they just maybe have other focuses, or they don't have the skill level or the budget on a project. And I think that's where our software friends can help. The fact that we can get square footage and we can do an early energy model using Autodesk Insight that's very accurate and has thermal perimeter and core thermal zoning and sustainability metrics. We want to right size things too, right? We don't want to make things like we used to do, dependent on energy and not doing passive strategies, just solving the problem by brute force, burning fossil fuels. That's also why, interestingly enough, we've been focusing more recently on embodied carbon, because the trajectory of this AIA 2030 commitment and the systems, LED lighting and heat pumps, I mean, we're going to get to net zero operational carbon. And so once we do that, what's left is embodied carbon, like the energy that's already been expended by the time it's installed.
Right, and in increasing the IECC requirements for assemblies and things, right, and going above and beyond just the code minimum. It's hard to talk people into adding more insulation.
And that's where policy helps, because
Right.
even here in Colorado, right, there's certain areas that have a maximum amount of energy use that you can have on a project. So you could have de-icing driveways, but then you can't have the hot tub, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that takes the onus off of the designer, right? This is the law, and you
Right.
can't go beyond that. So I mean, there are, again, challenges and things that happen, but every problem is a design solution opportunity.
Right.
Corey Squire said, design can save the world. And that's so true. Like, we have the skill and the agency. We just need to actually apply it and make the world a better place.
Yeah. Yeah.